Have you ever paused, truly paused, to witness the terrifying anomaly of your own existence? There is a phenomenon that occurs daily, hourly, perhaps even minutely, which we accept as normal, yet it is the root of all human misery. Single thought arises. It is nothing more than a flicker of electricity in the brain, a whisper of language, a phantom image. It has no mass, no weight, no physical reality. And yet, this ghost has the power to destroy your entire reality in seconds. Someone speaks a sentence to you. The sound waves dissipate instantly. The moment is gone. But in the theater of your mind, you press replay. You loop the scene, and suddenly your heart races. Your stomach churns with acid. You feel the heavy cloak of depression descending, or the sharp fire of anxiety burning in your chest. Not because of any danger present in the room. Not because of a predator or a physical wound, but because of a thought, a mere shadow cast upon the wall of consciousness. We all know this visceral experience. We have all been held hostage by the invisible tyrant. And yet, we rarely stop to ask the most dangerous question of all. Why does a mere thought possess the authority to dismantle us? Why does a whisper in the head carry the weight of a divine command? The answer is simpler than you might expect, but its implications are shattering. We do not suffer simply because we have thoughts. The brain secretes thoughts just as the mouth secretes saliva. We suffer because of a fundamental error in perception. We suffer because we become our thoughts. When a dark narrative rises from the abyss, I am a failure, I am unlovable, I am in danger, we do not see this as a mental event. We do not see it as a cloud passing through the sky. We see it as the truth. We see it as the absolute definition of reality. There is no gap between the thought and the thinker. The distance collapses. We are completely inside the hallucination. And from inside the prison cell, you cannot see the key. From that place of total identification, there is no freedom, only reaction. The Buddha, with the precision of a master surgeon, identified this disease over 2,600 years ago. He called it Sakkaya, Ditthi. This is often translated as self-view or personality belief, but the meaning is far more sinister. It is the view that mistakes the shifting, transient flows of mental and physical energy for a solid I, for me, for mine. When we believe we are our thoughts, we are caught in the gravity of this view. We are possessed, and suffering follows as naturally and inevitably as the wheel follows the ox that pulls the cart. If this was true in the ancient forests of India, it is catastrophically true today. We live in an era of weaponized distraction. We are besieged by a storm of noise notifications that demand our soul, emails that steal our peace, a 24-hour news cycle designed to trigger the amygdala, and social media algorithms that monetize our envy. The human mind was never architected for this level of assault. It creates a pressure cooker of consciousness. And so, the mind spins. It creates a vortex. It worries about futures that haven't happened. It excavates graves of the past to replay conversations from 10 years ago. It rehearses arguments with imaginary enemies. It defends an ego that doesn't exist. At 2 a.m., when the world finally falls silent, the mind often screams the loudest. The silence of the night becomes a canvas for the noise of the ego. Psychologists have a clinical term for this torture rumination. It is the tendency to chew on the same toxic thoughts over and over, like a cow chewing cud. It is a loop of despair. Modern research confirms that this habit is the single strongest predictor of severe anxiety and clinical depression. But do not mistake this for a modern disease. This is not a product of the iPhone. It is a product of the unobserved mind. The Buddha saw this mechanism clearly long before we had furry machines or laboratories. In the Madhyupandika Sutta, he described a specific, virulent form of mental activity called papanka. Translators often call this mental proliferation, but that phrase is too sterile. It does not capture the violence of the process. Papanka is the imperialistic expansion of the mind. It is not just thinking. It is thinking that has been hijacked by craving, by conceit, and by wrong views. It is the mind spinning complex, dramatic stories about how the world should be, about how we are the tragic hero, about how we deserve more, about how we must defend our fragile image at all costs. You know this pattern intimately. Someone makes a small, ambiguous comment. A seed is dropped. Before you can take a breath, your mind has watered that seed into a forest of paranoia. You construct an entire universe around those 3 words. You imagine their hidden motives, their secret malice. You script the perfect retort you should have delivered. You feel the adrenaline of anger flooding your veins, even though the person who spoke is miles away, likely sleeping. An hour passes. You have not moved an inch physically, but mentally, you have fought a war. You have been nowhere, but inside the catacombs of your own skull. This is papanka at work. This is the world builder. Not every automatic thought falls into this category. But when thoughts are driven by the fuel of attachment and the fog of delusion, when they loop endlessly and we feel powerless to hit the brake, that is the dangerous territory the Buddha warned us against. Here is the tragedy of this mechanism. When we are caught in this cycle, we lose our sovereignty. We lose the power to choose. Without the piercing light of mindfulness, we do not even see the thought arising. We are simply abducted. A thought appears, we react with the speed of a reflex, and that reaction births words or actions that create real-world consequences. Those consequences trigger more thoughts, more reactions, more suffering. Round and round the wheel turns. This pattern is a fractal of what the Buddha called dependent origination, the great chain of causation that keeps the engine of suffering running. Contact leads to feeling. Feeling leads to craving. Craving leads to clinging. Clinging leads to becoming. In the microscopic context of our inner life, it looks like this: a thought arises from the void. We identify with it immediately. We grasp at it if it is pleasant, or we push it away violently if it is painful. That grasping, that friction, creates the next wave of pain. Some teachers describe this as samsara happening moment to moment. In the traditional sense, samsara refers to the vast, terrifying cycle of birth and death across eons. But there is a micro-samsara. There is a cycle of birth and death happening right now in your mind. Every time you are lost in an unconscious reaction, you are born into a hell realm of anger or a hungry ghost realm of craving. We do not need to wait for the next life to experience the fires. It is happening now. In every moment we are swept away by thoughts we never chose. We are dying a small death. So, this is where we must begin with a brutal, honest look at the problem. We do not do this to create despair. We do this to create clarity. Because once you see the walls of the prison in high definition, you can finally begin to look for the door. If the core of the problem is that we become our thoughts, then the solution must involve a radical shift in perspective. We must find a way to not become them. But what does that actually mean? Is it a metaphor? No, it is a technical instruction. The Buddha gave very precise algorithms for this deprogramming. In the Cittānupassanā Sutta, the Magna Carta of meditation practice, he described the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The third foundation is called Cittānupassanā. This translates to observing the mind or contemplating consciousness. The instruction is stark in its simplicity. When the mind has greed, one knows clearly the mind has greed. When the mind is without greed, one knows the mind is without greed. When the mind has hatred, one knows the mind has hatred. Listen to the grammar. It is revolutionary. The text does not say, I am greedy. It does not say, I am angry. It says, the mind has greed. The mind is hatred. This is not linguistic pedantry. This is an ontological shift. It is the difference between being drowning in the ocean and standing on the shore watching the waves. When you say, I am angry, there is no space. You and the anger are fused. You are the anger. But when you recognize there is anger in the mind, a gap opens up. A sacred space appears. There is the anger, the object, and there is the knowing of the anger, the subject. 2 things, not one. In that gap, that tiny, infinite space of awareness, freedom is born. This is the key to breaking the identification we spoke of earlier. This is how you shatter the mirror of self-view. It can be broken, not by force, not by wrestling the mind into submission, but by a simple, profound shift in stanza, seeing what is happening clearly as it happens. This is seeing mind as mind, not as me, not as mine, not as myself. But the investigation goes deeper. The Buddha taught that when we observe these mental phenomena with the microscope of focus, we begin to see their true structural nature. All conditioned things, including the most stubborn thoughts, share 3 inescapable characteristics, known as the Tilakkhana. The first is impermanence, anicca. Every thought that arises must pass away. This seems obvious intellectually, but we rarely live as if it were true. When a painful thought grips us, it feels eternal. It feels like a monolithic slab of concrete that will never move. But if you sit quietly, like a hunter waiting in a blind, and you watch, you will see the truth. No thought lasts. Even the most persistent worry, if you do not feed it with your attention, will dissolve. It has no choice. It is energy. It must dissipate. That is the law of physics, and it is the law of the mind. The second mark is dukkha, often translated as suffering or unsatisfactoriness. Here the teaching is subtle. The Buddha did not say that thinking itself is suffering. He pointed out that clinging to what is impermanent is the recipe for suffering. When we grasp at a pleasant thought, trying to freeze time, we suffer because it slips through our fingers like sand. When we push against an unpleasant thought, trying to escape the present moment, we suffer because the resistance creates friction. The thought is not the enemy. The grasping is the enemy. The third mark is the most radical non-self anatta. This is the insight that dismantles the ego. We assume there is a thinker behind our thoughts, a little homunculus, a pilot inside the head who produces ideas and directs the show. But when we look carefully, when we search for this pilot, we cannot find him. Thoughts arise from conditions, from memory, from perception, from biological states, from past trauma. They arise like weather. Clouds form because of moisture and temperature, not because a cloud maker decided to create them. Thoughts arise because of causes, not because of a thinker. There is no one doing the thinking. There is just thinking happening. These three insights, impermanence, suffering through clinging, and non-self, are not theological dogmas to be believed. They are challenges. They are invitations to look for yourself. Sit in the fire of your own mind. Watch a thought arise. See if you can find its origin point. See if you can command it to stay forever. See if you can locate the you who is supposedly thinking it. There is a famous teaching that captures this liberating perspective perfectly. In the Bahia Sutta, a wanderer named Bahia came to the Buddha, desperate for the essence of the teaching. He demanded the truth immediately. The instruction he received was cryptic and piercing. In the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, there is only the heard. In the sensed, there is only the sensed. In the cognized, there is only the cognized. Thoughts belong to the cognized. They are mental objects appearing on the radar of awareness. When you truly see a thought as just a thought, not as a divine truth, not as your identity, not as a command from God, something remarkable happens. The spell is broken. The thought loses its hypnotic power. It is still there, perhaps floating in the space of the mind, but it no longer controls your hands or your heart. It is the difference between being chased by a tiger in a nightmare and waking up to realize the tiger was a phantom. The image remains in memory, but the fear evaporates. This is the insight, not a concept to be filed away in the library of your intellect, but a way of seeing to be practiced in the trenches of daily life. Now, if you have followed this logic, a critical objection may be forming in your mind. It is the question that haunts every modern practitioner. If I am supposed to just observe thoughts and let them pass, what about the thoughts that actually matter? What about planning for my family's future? What about solving complex problems at work? What about justice? Are we to become vegetables, watching life float by with a detached smile? This is the most dangerous misunderstanding of Buddhist meditation. It is the myth of the passivity trap. People here observe your thoughts and they hallucinate a kind of spiritual lobotomy, sitting like a stone statue while the world burns. But this is not what the Buddha taught, not even close. Consider the noble eightfold path, the Buddha's master blueprint for liberation. It includes a factor called samma sankappa. This translates to right intention or right thought. It is the second pillar of the path, standing shoulder to shoulder with right view. If all thinking were the enemy, if all mental activity were to be suppressed, why would right thinking be an essential step toward enlightenment? Right intention has three dynamic aspects: the intention of renunciation, the intention of goodwill, and the intention of harmlessness. These are not passive states of inactivity. They are active, powerful orientations of the will. They are vectors of energy. The teaching is not stop thinking. The teaching is think like a master. Think in ways that lead toward freedom and away from the dungeon of suffering. There is more proof. The Buddha also taught the four right efforts, known as sammapadana. Listen to the active verbs used here: to prevent unwholesome states from arising, to abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen, to develop wholesome states that have not yet arisen, to maintain and strengthen wholesome states that are already present. Does this sound like passivity? Prevent, abandon, develop, strengthen. This is the language of a warrior. This is the language of a gardener cultivating a field. It requires discernment, the razor, sharp ability to distinguish a weed from a flower. It requires energy, the will to pull the weed and water the flower. It requires persistence, the grit to continue when the work is hard. The Buddha himself was a thinker of the highest order. He analyzed the psychological capacities of thousands of individuals. He structured a massive organization of monks and nuns that has lasted millennia. He debated philosophers. He strategized. He planned. If thinking were inherently a sin against awareness, the Buddha would have been a hypocrite. So, why the emphasis on observation? Why the command to watch? The answer lies in the crucial distinction between mindfulness and heedlessness. In the Pali scriptures, true mindfulness, sati, is never alone. It is always accompanied by sampajana, clear comprehension. This is the wisdom factor. It is the intelligence that assesses what is being observed. Mindfulness without this discernment is just a blank stare. If you merely watch your mind with a dull cow, like gaze without clarity, without wisdom, without any intention to cultivate the good, that is not meditation. That is what the Buddha called Pamāda, heedlessness, negligence, spiritual laziness disguised as profundity. The Buddha took this so seriously that his final words, breathed out as he lay dying, were a warning against this very state. Vayadhama Sankara, Appamāda Sampa, death. All conditioned things are subject to decay. Accomplish your goal with diligence, with Appamāda, with the fire of earnestness. The final instruction was not relax, it was strive. This changes the entire landscape. The practice of observing thoughts is not an excuse to check out of life. It is a tool, perhaps the most powerful technology ever discovered for gaining the clarity you need to act wisely. You observe so that you can see the terrain. You see the terrain so that you can navigate it. You navigate it so that you can reach the destination of freedom. Passivity is not the goal. Wisdom in action is the goal. So we arrive at the pragmatic application. How do we execute this protocol in the chaos of the 21st century? How do we take these esoteric teachings off the cushion and into the boardroom, the kitchen, the traffic jam? Let us begin with a simple binary algorithm. When a thought arises, any thought, instead of asking the weak question, how do I make this go away? Ask the warrior's question, is this thought wholesome or unwholesome? This is the 4 right efforts applied in real time. It is a sword that cuts through confusion. If the thought is unwholesome, if it is a creature of greed, of bitter hatred, of confusing delusion, then the instruction is clear. Recognize it as poison. Do not drink it. Do not fight it, for fighting feeds it energy. Simply see it, withdraw your investment, and let it starve. Watch it fade. But if the thought is wholesome, if it is rooted in generosity, in kindness and clarity, in truth, then the instruction reverses. Do not let it pass. Seize it. Reflect on it. Feed it. Turn it into action. A thought to forgive an old enemy. Cultivate it. A strategy to help a friend in need. Build it. An idea to create something beautiful. Manifest it. These are not distractions from the spiritual path. They are the path. The practice is not about emptying the mind until it is a void. It is about cultivating a garden where only the beautiful can grow. There is a powerful metaphor that brings this home. Imagine a master carpenter. In his hand, he holds a hammer. The hammer is a tool. It is neither good nor evil. It has no morality. When the carpenter needs to drive a nail to build a shelter, he grips the hammer with strength and precision. He strikes true. The tool serves the master. But now imagine a carpenter who has gone mad. He cannot set the hammer down. He sits at the dinner table, clutching the heavy steel. He tries to caress his children, but the hammer is in the way. He tries to sleep, but his grip remains tight. This man has a problem. But the problem is not the hammer. The problem is his inability to release it. Our thoughts are the hammer. Thinking is a magnificent tool. It built civilizations. It cured diseases. When you need to plan with the full force of your intellect. When you need to solve with brilliance. But when the work is done, when the nail is driven, can you put the hammer down? When you are walking in nature, do you need the hammer? When you are listening to a loved one, do you need the hammer? When you are trying to sleep, do you need the hammer? This is the ultimate test of sovereignty. Who is in control? Are you the master of the tool, or has the tool enslaved the master? True freedom is not the absence of thought. True freedom is the fluidity to think when thinking is required, and to dwell in absolute, radiant silence when silence is required. It is mastery, not suppression. This distinction dictates how we live. In formal meditation, we train for the silence. We sit on the cushion to build the muscle of dropping the hammer. We watch the urge to pick it up, and we resist. We train the capacity to just be. But in daily life, we pick up the tool. We engage, we speak, we create. But now we do it differently. We do it with clear comprehension. We are no longer sleepwalking carpenters swinging hammers in the dark. We are awake. We see the thought. We assess its value. We choose our response. Mindfulness becomes the foundation for impeccable action. Remember this formula. Do not cling to what should be released. Do not release what should be cultivated. This is the middle way. The letting go is real. You must release the toxins. But the cultivation is equally real. You must grow the antidote. The Buddha did not teach us to escape from life. He taught us a way to inhabit life fully awake, responsive, unburdened, and terrifyingly free.